Picture this, 1867. The world is racing with empires and steamships. In the midst of it all, Russia, a giant empire, decides to sell Alaska, a land twice the size of Texas, with a coastline longer than all other U.S. states combined. The price? $7.2 million. That's 2 cents an acre. At the time, Americans mocked the deal, calling it Seward's Folly and President Johnson's Polar Bear Garden. But that frozen wasteland would become a treasure chest of gold, oil, and strategic power. Why did Russia sell? It's a story of fear, ambition, and geography. From St. Petersburg, Alaska was a remote, costly headache, more liability than asset. The Alaska purchase wasn't just a smart American buy, it was a desperate Russian sale. Russia, battered by war and empty coffers, needed to cut its losses. The looming British Empire made Alaska a dangerous liability, so Russia made a bold chess move, selling to the US and changing the course of history. We'll explore how Russia's Alaskan dream soured, and how the British threat forced the Tsar's hand. This is more than a quirky footnote, it's a lesson in how one empire's burden became another's bonanza. Let's dive into the real story behind America's best bargain. How did Russia get to Alaska? Why did they give it up? And how did this deal help shape the future superpower? The answers lie in a world of shifting empires, empty treasuries, and the harsh realities of the far north. Alaska's value would change overnight, but in 1867, it was a gamble. The Tsar saw a chance to escape a costly trap. The US saw a chance to expand its reach. The deal was struck, and the world would never be the same. Sometimes the best bargains are the ones nobody wants at first, and sometimes history's biggest twists start with a simple signature. How did Russia end up in North America? It all started with fur, specifically the luxurious sable and later the sea otter. Russian frontiersmen, the Promyshleniki, pushed east across Siberia, reaching the Pacific by the 1700s. In 1741, Vitus Bering's expedition landed in Alaska, returning with sea otter pelts worth a fortune in China. Suddenly, Alaska became the next great source of wealth. The fur rush was chaotic and brutal. Independent hunters enslaved native Aleut and Aleutic peoples to harvest otters. Violence and exploitation ran rampant, decimating both otter and human populations. To bring order, Tsar Paul had chartered the Russian-American Company in 1799, granting it monopoly control. The company set up its capital at Sitka, or New Archangel, and for a while, the fur trade boomed. Alaska seemed like a worthy imperial venture, at least for a moment. But beneath the surface, trouble was brewing. The profits masked deeper problems that would soon come to light. The Russian dream in America was built on fur, and that foundation was about to crumble. The Russian-American company ran Alaska, but governing it from St. Petersburg was a nightmare. Messages took months to arrive. By then, everything had changed. Supplies were shipped across Siberia or around the world, often arriving late or not at all. Colonists faced starvation if a single ship was delayed. Alaska's indigenous peoples, especially the Tlingit, fiercely resisted Russian control. In 1802, Tlingit warriors destroyed the Russian settlement at Sitka. The Russians rebuilt, but conflict and tension never stopped. Forts and soldiers drained the company's resources. The immense distance, fragile supply lines, and constant conflict made Alaska a costly burden. Profits from sea otter fur hid these problems for a while, but as the otters disappeared, the true cost of Alaska became clear. The colony was bleeding money just to survive. The Russian-American company's dream was turning into a nightmare. Alaska was becoming more trouble than it was worth. The empire's grip on its frozen outpost was slipping. Russian America's economy depended on one thing: sea otters. Decades of overhunting brought them to the brink of extinction by the 1840s. With the otters gone, profits vanished. The Russian-American company tried mining, ice cutting, and shipbuilding, but nothing replaced the lost wealth. Alaska's harsh environment made new industries nearly impossible. The colony became a money pit, draining the Russian treasury. The government had to subsidize the company just to keep it afloat. Alaska was no longer an asset, it was a liability. Officials in St. Petersburg questioned why they held on to this vast, empty territory. Russia itself was struggling to modernize and pay for reforms. The last thing it needed was a failing colony on the other side of the world. The dream of Russian America was dead. The only question left: what to do with the corpse? The economic argument for selling Alaska was now overwhelming. As Alaska's economy collapsed, Russia faced a bigger crisis, the Crimean War. Defeated by Britain and its allies, Russia was left in debt and exposed as backward. Alaska's vulnerability became obvious. If war broke out again, Britain could seize it in days. The British Hudson's Bay Company was already encroaching from Canada. Russian leaders realized they'd lose Alaska for nothing if they waited. So they hatched a plan to sell Alaska to the United States, not their British rivals. The sale would bring in cash, create a buffer against British expansion, and strengthen ties with America. It was a move born of weakness, but also shrewd strategy. Better to sell than lose everything. The Tsar's brother, Grand Duke Constantine, led the push. The stage was set for a historic deal. Why would the US want Alaska? 2 words, manifest destiny. After the Civil War, America was eager to expand. Some dreamed of an empire from the tropics to the Arctic. Secretary of State William Seward saw Alaska as a strategic prize, not a frozen wasteland. He envisioned new resources, trade routes to Asia, and a buffer against British Canada. Alaska's forests, fisheries, and minerals could be valuable in the future. The US also remembered Russia's support during the Civil War, creating goodwill. When Russia hinted Alaska was for sale, Seward jumped at the chance. He saw opportunity where others saw emptiness. The deal would annoy the British and fulfill America's continental ambitions. Many in Congress and the press mocked the idea, but Seward was determined. The stage was set for one of history's fastest real estate deals. America was ready to look north. With Russia eager to sell and Seward eager to buy, negotiations moved fast. In March 1867, Russian ministers Stokel and Seward haggled late into the night. They settled on $7.20 million, a price based on the Russian-American company's assets. The treaty was signed at 4 a.m. on March 30, 1867. Seward rushed the deal to the Senate, knowing opposition would be fierce. Critics mocked the purchase as Seward's icebox and Wall Russia. Why spend millions on a frozen wasteland? Seward lobbied hard, emphasizing Alaska's resources and strategic value. With help from Senator Charles Sumner, the Senate ratified the treaty 37-2. The House delayed but eventually approved the funds. In July 1868, the U.S. handed over $7.2 million in gold. America's territory grew by nearly 20% overnight. The deal was done. Alaska was now American. Few realized just how valuable it would become. History would prove Seward right. For years, Alaska seemed like a mistake, neglected, remote, and forgotten. But in 1896, gold was discovered in the Klondike, and Alaska became the gateway to a massive gold rush. Towns boomed and prospectors poured in. Gold strikes in Nome and Fairbanks soon followed. Alaska's gold paid for the purchase many times over. Then came the fisheries, timber, and in 1968, the discovery of oil at Prudhoe Bay. The Trans-Alaska Pipeline turned the state into an energy powerhouse. Alaska's strategic value soared during World War II and the Cold War. Air bases and radar stations made it America's northern shield. Seward's folly became one of the greatest bargains in history. The frozen wasteland was now a treasure chest. Alaska's true worth was finally revealed. Sometimes the critics are wrong, and visionaries are vindicated. Did Russia regret selling Alaska? At first, not at all. They'd offloaded a costly, indefensible colony and pocketed much-needed cash. Even the gold rush didn't spark much regret. Russia was busy with its own problems. The sale was seen as pragmatic given the circumstances, but during the Cold War, as Alaska became a U.S. military stronghold, some Russians felt a pang of regret. Oil discoveries in the 1970s, while the Soviet economy stagnated, made the loss sting more. Today the sale is a symbol of lost opportunity in Russia, sometimes even a punchline. But in 1867, it was a rational, even clever decision. History's judgments change with time. What seems foolish in hindsight was, for the Tsar, a necessary move in a dangerous world.